Welcome to episode 23 of Sunday Scaries skill sessions. Today I'm going to be talking about OCD, and this is going to be a little bit more of a psychoeducational video rather than a coping skill video. And that's just because I see a lot of people misusing this diagnosis or self-diagnosing this diagnosis. So I just wanted to offer what this actually looks like. And so in order to do that, we're going to be referencing the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This is basically the therapist's Bible for diagnoses. And when it comes to obsessive compulsive disorder, as with any other mental health disorder, there's going to be certain criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify for that diagnosis. So I'm just going to share what that criteria is for OCD to give people a clear idea of what this disorder actually looks like. It's not just being neat and tidy and liking things in a certain order. That's not OCD. So I've got my list here so that I don't forget anything. So the first thing that happens with OCD is that you're going to have persistent thoughts, images, or urges that are causing you distress, and really focusing on the piece where it causes you distress. If they're just thoughts coming in and passing right by, that's not what we're talking about. These are thoughts that feel out of your control, they feel pervasive, and they're causing you some kind of stress. Secondly, there is then an attempt to suppress or neutralize those thoughts or images by performing some compulsion. Okay, and compulsions can be thoughts or behaviors. Basically, obsessions are the thoughts, compulsions are the response to those thoughts, an attempt to neutralize them. Okay, so compulsions look like repetitive behaviors. So that could be things like hand washing or body checking. So, other diagnoses that are related to OCD are things like body dysmorphic disorder or hoarding. Some people may think that's more connected to anxiety, but it's actually more similar to OCD. So things like body checking, that would be a compulsive behavior. Okay? Then there's also mental compulsions, things like praying or counting. Okay, so things that are going on in your head, but that you're doing to offset all of those distressing obsessions that you started out with, okay? So the behaviors or the mental acts are meant to prevent a dreaded situation. So often people who struggle with OCD are convinced that if they don't engage in the compulsion, then something bad is going to happen. So, and often it's very illogical. So things like, if I don't have all blue folders, then my family is going to die in a car accident. It can be that extreme. So the compulsion is meant to avoid some dreaded situation. Okay, so that's the attempt. That's what it's meant to accomplish. But then the compulsion ends up adding more distress. So that's part of the criteria here, is that you're engaging in those behaviors or mental acts, and that the compulsions themselves are causing you more distress when they're meant to alleviate the distress. Okay. Additionally, the obsessions and compulsions are time consuming. So in the DSM, I'll show you what the full page looks like. So this is the full page for obsessive compulsive disorder. And according to the DSM, in order to qualify for OCD, you have to be spending at least an hour per day with the obsessions or compulsions. So they're time consuming. So again, if these are just fleeting thoughts, this isn't OCD. It's something that's really pervasive and taking up a lot of time. Okay. And then most importantly, it causes the obsessions and compulsions cause significant stress or impairment. So we're talking about like social or occupational. Imagine if you are convinced that you have to wash your hands every time you touch something, that is going to cause problems at being productive with your job, or it's going to cause problems if you're out in a social situation, right? So there's significant impairment or distress as a result of the OCD. So that's the basic criteria that someone has to meet in order to qualify for this disorder. So, when people are saying like, oh, I'm so OCD, I have to make my bed every morning, or I have to keep the kitchen clean, that is not what someone who truly has OCD is thinking. So just a little education on what that actually looks like, and maybe also some encouragement to not use that term to describe yourself if it's not actually something that you're suffering from.